First things first, how much did we spend on the trip? The general admission tickets were $600, which is really cheap in the F1 world, and we got them that cheap because of the lovely FP1 Will, shout out to him. Without the discount, they would have been around $1,200. We also spent around $40 on chairs, so we wouldn't have to sit on the ground. We opted for the Coda downtown shuttles, which were around $300, but that's the only viable means of transportation that you're gonna have, unless you're planning to ride a fucking Lime scooter 20 miles to the track. Also, we spent around $200 on Uber to get from the airport to the hotel and around the city. Now, if you want to get some food on track, an average meal for one person is going to set you back about $25. A small water bottle is going to cost you another $5, and if you dare to bring your own food or unsealed water to the track, they're going to take it from you at the entrance. All in all, we spent about $300 on food and drinks, and we didn't eat out in fancy places, mind you. That's just how much things cost when F1 is in town. We managed to strike a deal on Airbnb and got a nice downtown apartment right near the downtown shuttle pickup for $500 for 3 days. However, as soon as we landed, we got a message from the host saying that the sewage exploded and we won't be able to live there. I managed to book the last available room in Hyatt in downtown, which cost me $1,000 for 2 nights. Yeah. Just a normal fucking room with a bed and a bathroom, no kitchen, no nothing. So if we round everything up, we're gonna get about $2,400 without the airplane tickets, which vary heavily on your location. We spent around $200 on that. I mean, it doesn't sound bad for a Formula 1 weekend, provided that you actually enjoy it. And that's where the fun part starts. Well, as soon as we landed, everything looked pretty smooth. Apart from our apartment being covered in hot steaming shit. We got out of the airport, ordered a cab to the track, since the check-in at the hotel started at around 3 p.m, and we also wanted to catch the Friday action since it was a sprint weekend this year. Anyway, we got into our cab, realized that the driver doesn't speak a word of English or Spanish, somehow made our way to the track by literally pointing fingers and breaking a lot of traffic laws, and then we realized that we're 1.5 miles away from the only official entrance to the track. 27-minute walk with all our baggage, no biggie, except it was 37 scorching degrees outside, in the shade. There wasn't a single cloud in the sky and the humidity was around 40%. As it later turned out, this was a record temperature in Austin. The last time anything like this was recorded was back in the 50s. Now, don't think that we're completely insane. We were monitoring the forecast and came somewhat prepared with headwear, light clothing, and an umbrella. Plus, we live in Miami, so we're kind of used to the heat, but boy oh boy was this shit different. It felt like walking through a sauna that's constantly being cranked up. Anyway, we made it to the circuit, spent about half an hour trying to come to terms with our bodies, got some food in our system, and made our way to turn 16. When I say you can't see shit from here, please believe me. It looks way better on camera, but you truly can't see anything. You can see some cars in the distance trying to make the turn, but that's it. And yeah, no screen as well. We figured that it's just this turn that's like this, and you could actually see pretty good from the grandstands, so we decided to go to turn 1, that's here, which is also a pretty long walk. Besides that, have I mentioned that there's little to no shade on the whole racetrack? Yeah, you're walking under the blazing sun 99% of the time. Halfway to turn 1, we realized that we're not gonna make it to turn 1, and our bodies started giving out. We turned around to get to the downtown shuttles and eventually just collapsed under some gate that had a little bit of shade. I realized that we're utterly fucked at this point because we can't even get out of the track. I left my wife by the gate, spotted some guards, and went to get some help. I explained the situation and kudos to them. They managed to find a guy that could take us to the medical center fairly quickly, and it turned out that it's not just us. People were dropping like literal flies. The Coda staff couldn't handle the amount of people fainting from heat exhaustion, and medical carts were going around non-stop. We spent about an hour in the medical center trying to recover. Thank the fucking Lord that it was air conditioned. Oh yeah, no other place on the track was, except for the paddock and the paddock club, of course. So if you're just ordinary scum and don't want to pay $10,000 for a ticket, tough luck, buddy. After all of that, my wife somehow managed to find a guy that was able to take us to the downtown shuttles since we couldn't walk. but he had to take us to the main medical center first to get us checked out properly. The only cool thing about this whole situation is the fact that we were able to see the medical helicopter and the paddock up close without having to pay $10,000 for a ticket. Anyway, we eventually made our way to the downtown shuttles. Huge shout out to the Coda staff, those guys are legends. The shuttles were air conditioned and actually F1 themed, which was really nice. We got to the hotel and that's where it really kicked in. The weather in the upcoming days was looking more or less the same, and that's where we got the big sad. But we figured it was worth a shot to stay and at least see what happens. Maybe we could actually handle it if weather was more like Texas and less like literal fucking hell. Day 2 came, we were feeling a bit better and ended up going to the track again. By this point, we had only managed to catch an F1 Academy and Porsche Cup practices. So we were hoping to catch the sprint quali and perhaps the sprint as well. When we made our way to the circuit, it was a little cooler, but still around 34-35 degrees Celsius. This time we actually knew what to expect though, so we drank bucket loads of water and used paper towels to keep ourselves wet all of the time so we would feel generally cooler. Despite our best efforts, we lasted about 2 hours and decided to go back to the hotel without an excursion to the medical center this time. On day 3, we were back to normal and dedicated to watch the race because we had to watch practically everything else from the TV in the hotel. Of course, if we knew this was going to happen, we would have bought tickets for Sunday only, but at the time that we were actually buying tickets, the forecast said 24 degrees, not fucking 37. I know sometimes that can be inaccurate, but 13 degrees is a hell of a difference, don't you think? So we got up bright and early and headed to the racetrack to catch the F1 historic race, which I was extremely pumped about, since we could catch arguably the best F1 car in history, the MP44. However, when we made it to the track at 8:15, the gates open at 8 by the way, there was an unbelievably long line, as you can see in the clip. This is significantly sped up, mind you. So we missed the historic race. Bummer, but we weren't too upset because we initially came here to watch the Gran-Prix. This would have been just a bonus. Anyway, we decided to actually make it to turn 1 this time, which looked like this at 10 a.m. 4 hours before the Grand Prix. I overheard some lady at the airport later on telling someone on the phone that she had to come at 4 a.m. to get a good view into turn 1. That's fucking insane. As the day progressed, we managed to see another F1 Academy race and a Porsche Cup race, which I'm actually a pretty big fan of. But here's the exact point where we come to the most important part of the video. Everything is way overhyped. I know that sounds ridiculous, F1 being the pinnacle of motorsport and everything, but just hear me out. This was our first GP that we ever attended, and I thought that I was going to be more excited or impressed. Now don't get me wrong, I've been to a number of races in other disciplines before, so I didn't expect to be blown away, but I at least expected something. When you attend smaller races, you generally have that special atmosphere, that, you know, something floating in the air. With Coda, it just feels commercial, like it's more of a festival than a motorsport event. I don't know, it could have been just me, but I didn't feel the racing spirit when I was there. Max Verstappen actually said something pretty similar when talking about Vegas. Am I fucking glad I didn't go there? One important aspect that no one really seems to mention is the fact that if you don't buy a grandstand ticket near a screen, the only way you can actually follow the race is through this little funky radio that they give out if you sign up for an American Express newsletter. The reason why is because at Coda, there's no internet. You can't watch a broadcast from your phone. You just don't have any reception. That's it. So essentially you're just sitting there with heaps of people around you listening to this radio and seeing cars speed by you and trying to make the corner if you're actually lucky enough to see the corner. That's it. So we ended up watching 15 laps of the GP and heading home, since in our opinion, watching the race from home is a lot more enjoyable than with general admission tickets, unless you're a hardcore fan of some team or driver. We took the shuttle to downtown and then a cab to the airport, where we were greeted with our tickets being cancelled because we were dumb enough to fly Spirit. Turns out, if you buy round-trip tickets with Spirit, if you don't board the first flight, your return flight automatically gets cancelled. After screaming at their support staff for about half an hour, we got tickets for the exact same flight tomorrow evening, because all tickets to our flight were already sold out. You can imagine the mood we had, since the only thing that we wanted at that point was to just get home. So yeah, we were stranded in Austin for another day. Got some slapping barbecue, by the way, a bottle of wine, and watched the race from the hotel. This trip has just been a massive learning experience for the both of us. That's why I initially wanted to shoot this video, so that other people like us don't end up in the same situation. Am I glad we went? Strangely enough, yeah. I enjoyed some parts of the weekend, and overall being near something that I love so deeply is kind of awesome in its own. Would I do it again? Hell no. The only way I'm going back to Coda is either with grandstand tickets on the straight or with a paddock pass. As I already mentioned, I think general admission tickets at Dakota are for either extremely die-hard fans or people that just want to go to a festival and drink their troubles away. I'd say if you're one of these people, go for it. But otherwise, save a little more for grandstand tickets or paddock pass if you're really loaded. Anyway, I've kept you here long enough, and if you made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for listening to my rant, and see you next time. Keep racing.